What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy might actually still happen? What the Guys, I can't believe it. Honestly, a video I never thought I'd have to make, but Rian Johnson's out there talking to different outlets about his upcoming Netflix sequel to Knives Out. I believe it's called The Glass Onion. And look, I like the Knives Out movie. There are even aspects of The Last Jedi that I enjoyed, right? But, of course, it is the most controversial Star Wars movie, I think, ever, and it is coupled with the fact that Lucasfilm greenlit Rian Johnson's trilogy of movies before The Last Jedi even came out. You know, classic Lucasfilm getting ahead of themselves, being ridiculous, and so now we have to talk about new comments that Rian Johnson has made and the actual possibility that they might make his trilogy. I can't believe it, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, dang, dude, it is Lucasfilm. And Lucasfilm is gonna Lucasfilm. Okay, so I'm over here on Screen Rant. They are covering what was said in the Empire interview. It's crazy, so I'm gonna read a little bit here. It says, in an interview with Empire to discuss the 5th anniversary of his franchise film, Star Wars The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson opened up about the potential Star Wars return. Johnson confirmed that his new Star Wars trilogy talks are still alive at Lucasfilm and revealed that he and Kathleen Kennedy meet regularly to try and hammer out a plan to produce it. See what Johnson said below. So here's what he says here. I've stayed close to Kathleen and we get together often and talk about it. It's just at this point a matter of schedule and when it can happen. It would break my heart if I were finished, if I couldn't get back into that sandbox at some point. Rian also talked about in that Empire interview how he's even more proud of The Last Jedi nowadays than he was even back then, talking about when he was up to bat, he really swung for it with that movie, and I think that's actually true. And when you look at what happened in Rise of Skywalker, I mean, Rise of Skywalker was even worse, right? I think that The Last Jedi just wasn't reined in. Like, Rian did some ridiculous stuff with Luke Skywalker, and I felt like he overwrote the movie. And also, on top of all of that, the discourse past the movie and the way he personally talked about people that disliked his trilogy and a lot of the Lucasfilm employees around that time, like, I just, this is so ridiculous to me, because in a perfect world, yeah, like, Rian's a good filmmaker and maybe seeing his next trilogy would be cool, but this is such a freaking bad idea.
I have a bad feeling about this.
But first, before I get into that and get caught up into it, let's talk about why this might actually happen. Because as you know, viewer, man, like, Star Wars is just stacking up L after L, and it kind of seems like they're having trouble getting talent to sign up to actually do these movies. I mean, the Taika Waititi movie is said to be happening, but, you know, it's not filming this year, and Taika has even kind of alluded to in interviews that he doesn't even know if he'll be able to crack the code on that script or on that story, so they're working on that right now. Patty Jenkins was supposed to be doing Rogue Squadron, and there were a lot of reports of bad blood and creative differences between her and Kathleen Kennedy. That's being pushed off into the far, far distance, and this is on top of all kinds of other, you know, just negative to, you know, just very negative headlines when it comes to Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is in such a weird spot as a brand where even the Kenobi show,
Hello there,
which should have been this massive, huge success, it dipped in viewership towards the end, and in my opinion, was a really bad show. Like, there's redeeming qualities in the Obi-Wan show, but it's not good, and that's following up Book of Boba Fett, and it feels like, to me, that Star Wars is in kind of this tailspin, and if they can't attract, like, other talent that actually want to do Star Wars movies, like, if Taika's kind of not feeling it, maybe because of, you know, some of the perception of his brand, but also just how tough the Star Wars fan base is, if Patty Jenkins is not feeling it because of maybe the pressures of the Star Wars fandom, but also because of what Lucasfilms, you know, does to these creatives, then who else would there be? And it just feels like a perfectly out of touch, ridiculous Lucasfilm move to bring back the guy that made the most controversial Star Wars film of all time and let him do another trilogy. Maybe he's the only one that would do it. And we also know, of course, that Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson loved working together. I mean, there were not issues behind the scenes with that film, and before the movie released, Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson thought that they had created the next empire. They thought they had done something really, really special and significant, and again, I think they just totally underestimate what that movie did to the fandom, but also what the discourse between Lucasfilm and Lucasfilm employees and the fan base, what damage that did to the Star Wars brand.
Another happy landing.
And if you're asking me, like, is it technically possible that Rian could come in and do a Star Wars trilogy that would be absolutely fantastic? Like, yeah, that is possible. And in fact, I wish that Rian hadn't done The Last Jedi and instead was put on something that didn't have legacy characters, that didn't feel like it was the next chapter in all of Star Wars, and just had a little less of that pressure, because there are aspects of The Last Jedi that I do enjoy, and I do think he's a really good filmmaker. The problem is that none of that happened, and the way it went down led to this incredible rift. And even today, with these comments made by Rian Johnson, I mean, go out on Twitter and see what's happening, dude. People are losing their mind, and it's digging up all of this baggage and conversation about the film 5 years later. And, you know, I still find myself getting dragged into conversations talking about The Last Jedi. And to me, this is sort of my biggest criticism of Rian, is that I think he did that intentionally. Like, Rian, I think, made a divisive movie so that you'd never forget the Rian Johnson Star Wars movie, and that is kind of his personality, right? There was that old video where he was talking about how he didn't feel right about a movie that he made unless, like, half the people really, really disliked it.
My lord, is that legal?
I will make it legal.
And again, I feel like he was so focused on being Rian Johnson and overwriting it and doing controversial things and pushing the envelope that he didn't stay true enough to Star Wars lore, okay? So it's possible Rian could have the goods to do it, but I think this would be such a mistake for the Star Wars brand, because if they make a trilogy with Rian Johnson, the discourse surrounding those films will be very toxic, like undeniably, okay? And just from a simple perspective of, like, do you want the discourse and all of the conversations about your next Star Wars trilogy to be about what the trilogy could be about, the hype, the interest, the lore, and all of those kind of things? Or do you want it just to be about Rian Johnson? Because he kind of did that. He created that. Now it will only be about him, about his divisive nature, and about his very divisive Star Wars movie. I think this would be such a freaking mistake for Lucasfilm to do.
How embarrassing.
But, you know, there are some that feel as though Lucasfilm is actually trying to take this current place where the brand is at and push it even further. There are a lot of people pretty unpleased with Star Wars, and there are theories out there that maybe Disney wants to completely get rid of all of these older fans, or these fans that have expectations that are different than maybe newer, younger fans, right? They want people that are a little bit more casual, that are a little bit more into just enjoying the Star Wars experience, you know, at a surface level, and don't have these deep ties and aren't incredibly bothered by depictions, by, you know, changes in canon, by powers that don't make sense. And so there's an argument to be made here that even though this would be a horrible idea, it's a horrible idea that Lucasfilm is actually interested in, because they frankly want to solidify Star Wars as this new thing and totally separate all of these other people from it.
And not just the men, but the women and the children too.
I still think that would be such a massive, horrible, ridiculous mistake, but it is possible that that's what's going on. And then there are also people that hated The Last Jedi, that hate what Lucasfilm is doing right now, and they want Rian Johnson to get the job because they think that this will solidify Star Wars as a complete and total failure and make it so that Lucasfilm either has to sell it or completely change direction. It's almost like an accelerationist idea. Like, this is bad, but let them do the most bad, the fastest way possible, so that then they totally screw it up, and then we can get new and better Star Wars after that. I don't know, man, but I honestly cannot believe that this is actually possibly going to happen. It feels like Star Wars is this never-ending like roller coaster ride where you just keep going around, getting kicked in the nuts and being asked like, aren't you having a good time? Aren't you having a good time? Will this ever end? I don't know.
Impossible to see. The future is.
But that is the news. What do you make of this? Do you think Rian Johnson should get his trilogy or not? Let me know in the comment section below.